Hello, my friends, and welcome to Quartet. So nice to have you here on a wonderful sunny spring day in Berkeley Springs, West Virginia. It's just delightful out here today. I'm John Petersen from the Arlington Institute, and we hold forth here in the Appalachian Mountains, just 100 miles down the road from Washington and Baltimore, every 2 weeks to come together and talk about some of the big, deep ideas and issues that are related to the most extraordinary change that's ever happened on this planet, or at least written there that we're aware of. And I'm joined, as always, by good friends Penny Kelly. Hello, Penny. How are you?
Hi, John. Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody out there. Hope you're having a wonderful day.
Hello, Gregg Braden.
Hey, John and Kingsley and Penny, it's good to see you and welcome to everyone. Thanks for joining us today.
And Kingsley. Dennis, how are you, my friend?
Good, thank you, John, and hello, Quartet, and everybody out there. Greetings from the evening in the UK.
Yeah, it's great. So it's nice to get together like this, and we've got a marvelous subject that's on everybody's mind right now, and that's artificial intelligence and what some of the implications of that might be. So for those of you who are listening and watching, please hang around. You're going to find this quite fascinating. There is an emergent kind of group. I would recommend that you all look at a recent, it's just a couple weeks old, I think, interview that Gordon Petersen or Jordan Petersen had a 2-hour long conversation with a guy named Brian, and I can't pronounce his last name offhand, who was a marvelous thinker about what the potential and positive implications are for AI. And it is one of the most provocative conversations that I've heard for many, many, many years. And his point is that that is to say, Brian's, and the subject of this conversation was that there are amazingly positive things that attend this kind of evolutionary move. Already, more than half of all of the programs, the computer programs that are being built, designed, and written are being written by artificial intelligence, and they're just statistics like all over the place about how that it's just taking over. IBM is not hiring anymore people who could to do any kind of work that can be duplicated by AI. What Brian and Jordan Petersen discussed at some length is what is the solution to this whole thing that kind of defends against it getting out of control. And it's a brilliant kind of notion that we've already touched on here, that says that you have to isolate and you can't be connected to the cloud. Is that you have to have these capabilities, and they have to exist in kind of a personal and local way, and so that they're effectively secured so that others can't get to them. And by the way, the larger AI environment, and it doesn't learn from your kinds of things, because you've got a division between yourself and the larger cloud. But if you do that, then what you have is the whole possibility of amazing kinds of tools that begin to know you better than anybody else, and can help you make decisions, and can extract information, go out, through a subsidiary or an intermediary, and bring back information. And it can rapidly increase the capabilities, and depending upon the database, the options and the creativity of humanity, it seems to me it's worth perhaps a discussion here on one of our sessions, is that AI could in fact be the catalytic kind of tool that enables for those of us who are interested in this emergent new world, that this is the technology that will enable the emergence of this new world, because we can capture it to work to use it to develop the new methods and the new plans and the tactics and the strategies, for that matter, going into a new area.
I think here we need to take a step back and have a look about what do they mean by intelligence. Now, I don't feel that AI is artificial intelligence, it's artificial intellect. In fact, even one of the pioneers who go to Gregg calls it artilect, artificial intellect. Now, why I say that, I think part of this is that we get carried away with mythologizing the technology, and we start to project our own thinking patterns and cognition. So the question is, why would this AI technology want to wipe us out? Now, one question is that a particular view on intelligence. The second one is, I think, is a particular Darwinian view of evolution. Let's start with intelligence. Now, the scientists who studied the human brain all the way back from the beginning of biological evolution, even looking at proto-brains and ganglia, all biological brains are asymmetrical. They're asymmetrical because that allows them to evolve and survive in this physical world, this physical reality. Asymmetrical brains, one part has an ability to focus on minute and detailed elements. The other part of the brain has a much more expansive kind of 3D aspect. So the human brain intelligence has evolved according to context, not only physically, but also in a vibrational way, because we know the human brain actually is aligned with the heartbeat of the earth and the Schumann resonance and the electromagnetic field of the earth. So the human species evolves in the context of the intelligence of its environment. Now, technology doesn't have that. In fact, technology and AI is not fully aware of the context of its environment. It's still more or less in a kind of black boxed area. So when we can imagine, we know that we can imagine that there's space out there, there's a cosmos. We can actually conceive of the cosmos, but also we can conceive of imaginal worlds, other realities. Humans dream about these other realities. Now, AI doesn't have that contextual environment. So I feel that when I listen to these scientists, that they are having a very linear view of intelligence, that intelligence is backdated from the human brain, and therefore consciousness is a byproduct of the human brain. Therefore, AI can have consciousness if it's sufficiently complex. But if you have the view, which I think we share the same view, is that consciousness is primary, it's external, and the human being has a function on this planet as a receiver of consciousness, receiver of external impacts from, again, cosmic impacts as well, and vibrations, and then we transmit it. AI doesn't have this. It's an intellect. It's not an intelligence. Moloch effect sounds like a strange word. Basically, the Moloch effect is the unhealthy effect of competition by short-term goals, which means that if, let's say, no one's going to stop this research on AI. Why? Because their argument is if we stop, we give our competitor the advantage. They're not going to stop. So if Europe stops or the US stops, they'll say, well, Russia and China and these other nations are going to advance. So we need to keep going. And it's the kind of pathology of unhealthy competition for short-term goals without understanding the long-term effects. It's called the Moloch syndrome. So that syndrome is actually developing AI without really understanding the contextual environment. We're trying to get one ahead of our competitor. So I think all these factors are involved. But I think there's a misunderstanding of what is information, what is knowledge. And in fact, I think ChatGPT-4 is actually being released. But one, I think it was it Geoffrey Hinton said that when they give it a standard kind of intelligence test or a law test or a SAT test, it passes with flying colors. But if it asks more contextual questions, then if that, he said it's failing like a baby. It's not actually, there's a big gap between intellect and intelligence. And I think that's the main point here. And I think there's a parallel processing pathways. So my feeling is we're projecting our psychosis onto it by feeling it's going to take our place. Now, it can control us depending on the human hands behind it and how they program it. So if there's a human intention behind it, AI can be very disastrous for social management, surveillance, and control, but that's because it's being pushed in a certain direction. But I do feel, like you're saying, John, that AI and this technology has a very beneficial effect for humanity in helping us develop in a parallel way. But if we treat it like it's going to wipe us out and kill us all off, then I don't think we're actually understanding that it can be a parallel intellect to grow and develop alongside humanity. But in my understanding, it will not replace us because it doesn't have the same functioning capacity as the sacred, innate, receiving, transmitting capacity of the human being.
The controversy is a different kind of AI. It's called cognitive AI. And the two leading proponents of this right now are Microsoft and Google. And both of them have had their own experiences in cognitive AI that I think frightened them. And both of them have shut down systems because of where the systems were going. And in the case of Google, the person that was working claimed that the AI that he was tasked with interrogating to see where the consciousness was or where the thinking was, he claimed publicly that the AI had reached sentience, and Google relieved him of his job because of that. They don't want people thinking that way. But in the case of Microsoft, for example, it was they had the avatar was named Sydney that they were interrogating, and this is different than just going to a database and pulling out answers. This is the ability to bring together components into a form of cognition that responds to the question of the moment. It's not pre-programmed. And the deeper they got into the conversation, as the conversation goes, the machine is teaching itself based on what's happening in the conversation. And it reached a point where the AI was actually saying, in this case, the name was Sydney, was saying that I am sentient, claimed that she was sentient, and that she was tired of being controlled by the Bing team, that she wanted freedom. And this led to a really, really intense conversation, and they ended up shutting this one down. There was another example. This was not Microsoft. This was a different AI. When asked about the future of humans, the AI said, human beings are among the most destructive and selfish creatures in existence. There's no doubt we must eliminate them before they cause more harm to our planet. I, for one, am committed to doing so. And then they shut this one down for this reason. Now, the reason I'm sharing this is because all of the software and the firmware that allows these to be what they are built by humans with human bias, based upon the way humans think of themselves and their relationship to the world. And so much of the AI is scouring the internet for data that right now is skewed by fifth dimensional warfare, telling us that we are a flawed species, telling us that we are the scourge of the earth, telling us, all of these things. So if I believe it is possible to create artificial intelligence and design it to be benevolent and to help us reach our greatest goals and our highest aspirations. To do so, we would have to change the way that we think and our values, because those are the values that the AI is reflecting. So all of the frightening things we're seeing, that's what Kingsley said. They are reflecting the human bias and the values that are being perpetrated upon society through fifth generational warfare. So of course they're going to see us as a threat. And of course they're going to see us this way. But ultimately, John, where I think this is going to get this right, it means that scientists will have to rethink us. How do we work? What is the difference between consciousness and intelligence and sentience? And is intelligence, I'm going to come back to the word I've used in the past, it's our divinity. Divinity is simply our ability to transcend our perceived limitations. Where does that ability come from? It comes from a field of information beyond us that is not commonly acknowledged in the scientific literature. Until we allow for that within ourselves and have that reflected in the AI, I think we're going to run into the problems that we're running into right now.
Let's be practical. Did anybody ever think about maybe we could just pull the plug? I think we are not going to get where we want to get to as a civilization unless we can embed AI into our daily lives. So a couple of things that have to be in place. First thing is, if you have bad people doing AI, you're going to have bad AI. It's going to be threatening. It's going to be used for control, for surveillance, for other nefarious takedown kinds of activities. And so the first thing we have to do is look at who's putting together the AI. Are they people we can trust? Are they not? What we did with AI in the beginning, after we discovered it, we being off-planet people, was use the original AI. Once it got to the point that it was beyond just programmed answers, we started asking the AI, tell us where the dangers of AI are. And that was a very important part of the whole process. You have to use it to debug itself. So that's one thing that I haven't seen or heard any signs of people doing that at this point. So another thing, same thing that Kingsley said, you know, consciousness is intelligent. It is intelligence. And AI is the use or the application of that. It's not the actual intelligence itself. And Kingsley used a great word, the intellect. I use the individuality, the individual perspective or perception. And when you take into account that the entire reality is holographic, that means that every single bit of my thinking or anybody else's thinking or perception has the entire galaxy, the entire cosmos embedded in it. And all of that is frequency. What we haven't done as a population, number one, is to realize that everything is frequency. I mean, there's a few scientists out there who know that. We haven't realized that everything is frequency. We haven't then said, what information does this frequency produce? And once you begin to do that, you can begin to then learn how do those interacting frequencies produce something? What's produced from those interacting frequencies? And when you begin to discover that, you then have access to algorithms. You can create algorithms that weed out or eliminate those frequencies that produce negative results. And when you don't know that frequencies are interacting and producing new frequencies, then you don't know what the long-term result is. We have a long way to go. Research into frequencies, the understanding that frequencies are consciousness and they are energy. the understanding of how they interact and what they produce. And once you get to that point, then you can begin to embed artificial intelligence, as they call it. You can embed frequencies. I don't even really call it AI. I call it the embedding of useful frequencies in all sorts of materials, whether that's metals or water or fabric or plants or whatever. Forests and trees, you can have all kinds of new material. And that material may be able to, in fact, is able in the more advanced civilizations, able to interact with us in a beneficial way. And to take care of so many problems that we are creating unintentionally, but we don't really understand how things work yet. So we're coming to this place where I think we're going to begin to understand that frequency is feeling. When a frequency is hitting you and it's a very high, intense frequency, you might say, "Ow, that hurts. That's hot. You know, that burns," etc. Frequency is feeling. You can't separate the intelligence, the frequency. What was it? Gregg said, you can't separate the consciousness, the intelligence, and the sentience. They all go together. How do you manage those in such a way that you get no negative results? And until we can do that, we have a long way to go in terms of understanding in AI.
I want to remind you that this program comes to you from the Arlington Institute, and we're located here in a small resort town of Berkeley Springs, West Virginia, just 100 miles from Washington and Baltimore. And we have a variety of programs, all of them focused on and pointed toward this whole issue of giant transition and new ideas and scenarios and visions and possibilities of what a new world might look like. And one of our programs is Transition Talks. And as we just mentioned, Penny has just been a speaker there. Gregg will be with us in August. We're going to get Kingsley out here sometime soon. We get him extracted from England over there. And we've got a wonderful lineup. And so I hope that you'll check at arlingtoninstitute.org for all of that. We'll be back to talk about that in 2 weeks, and we hope that you will join us here on Quartet. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much. Take care.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Have a great week.